Hi friends, welcome back to Miss J's Library. Today I'm going to read Curious George's First Day of School by Margaret and H.A. Rays. They wrote the book, so we call them the authors. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today George was so excited he could barely eat his breakfast. "You have a big day ahead of you, George," said his friend, the man with the yellow hat. "What did you guys eat for breakfast today?" "What is George eating for breakfast?" It was a big day for George. It was the first day of school, and he had been invited to be a special helper. George and his friend walked together to the schoolyard. Some of the children were nervous, but George could not wait for the fun to begin. In the classroom, George's friend introduced him to Mr. Apple. "Thank you for inviting George to school today," the man with the yellow hat said to the teacher. Then he waved goodbye. "Have a good day, George. I'll be back to pick you up after school." There's George meeting his new teacher, Mr. Apple. The children were excited to have a monkey in class. "George is going to be our special helper," Mr. Apple told them. Mr. Apple says, "Welcome to your first day of school." And George is helping. And what a helper he was. At story time, George held the book. At math time, the children could count on George. And at recess, George made sure everyone had a ball and a well-balanced snack. How silly, they're balancing their snacks on their head. After lunch, Mr. Apple got out paints and brushes. George saw red, yellow, and blue. 3 colors were not very many. George was curious. Could he help make more colors? First, George mixed red and blue. What color did he make? George made purple. Next, George mixed red and yellow to make what color? George made orange. Then George mixed yellow and blue to make green. Finally, George mixed all the colors together. What color do you think he made with all those colors? You know what he made? A big mess. The children thought the mess was funny, but Mr. Apple did not. "Oh dear," he said, "we are going to need something to clean this up. Everyone, please sit quietly while I look." What could they use to clean up this mess? George did not mean to make such a mess, and he certainly did not want to sit quietly. He wanted to help. It was his job, after all. George had an idea. In the hallway, George found a closet. In the closet, he found a bucket. In the bucket, he found just what he needed. What do you guys think he found in that bucket? A mop. George was on his way back to the classroom when he heard somebody yell, "Stop! Stop! What are you doing with my mop?" The janitor ran after George. "Stop! Stop! No running in the halls!" The principal ran after the janitor. But George was going too fast to stop. He grabbed the doorway and swung inside, and what do you think happened next? Sploosh! The bucket tipped, the mop dropped, and George slid across the floor. Now the mess was even bigger. Mr. Apple looked surprised. The principal frowned. The janitor just shook his head. And George, poor George, he felt terrible. Maybe he was not such a good helper after all. George looks very sad, doesn't he? The children felt terrible too. They did not like to see George looking so sad. They thought he was a great helper. Now they wanted to help him. How kind of them. They're helping their friend George clean up. So all the children lent a hand and some feet. That's so silly. Do you clean up with your feet? Not unless you're a monkey. And before anyone knew it, the mess was gone. That little monkey sure is helpful, the janitor said. It looks like Mr. Apple has a whole class full of helpers, the principal added. At the end of the day, when George's friend arrived to pick him up, Mr. Apple said, "Thank you for all of your help, George. We hope you will come help us again." The children cheered. They hoped George would come again, too. George is so happy now. George waved goodbye to his friends. What a great day it had been. He could not wait to go back to school. The end. So, in our story, George made a mess when he was trying to help, but he was only trying to help, so his friends helped him clean up that big mess. I love having helpers in my class, and it's okay sometimes if we make a mistake, as long as we clean it up, right? Thank you guys for listening so much to Curious George's first day at school. See you next time, friends.